Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Basics, which is a really awkward phrase to say the minute I realize it. But this is our Bible podcast where we're doing some of that fancy schmancy deconstructing stuff and talking about why the Bible isn't as fateful and crazy as you think it is. We are working our way through Genesis chapter 18, and let me tell you, today is the introduction to the fun stuff. But before we get started, I am still, surprisingly, Pastor Don. And I am joined by the amazing, the wonderful, the magnificent, the various other words, Courtney Fraley.
The still a bit sick Courtney Fraley.
Oh.
It hasn't actually been like this for a week. It's been like this for tonight because
you're rocking the Vernors. I gotta say, the other day I came across Mitsuya Cider, which is a Japanese soda brand out here. Did a craft ginger ale going into the fall here. And I got to tell you, the Michigander in me was freaked out by it. I took one drink of that and I'm like, wow, that is stronger than Vernors. Like, that does not happen.
I can imagine ginger ale being gingerier than Vernors, but Vernors is like a freaking magic potion, man.
Yeah.
And you won't get anybody from Michigan to admit otherwise either.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I'm from Michigan, quote unquote, even though I was born elsewhere, but I've never been a huge fan.
I'm not generally a tremendously big fan, but my dear husband picked me up a thing of Vernors because I'm sick, and it's always a good idea when you're sick to down some freaking Vernors. So
you're wrong.
I don't always think to ask for it, but it's always appreciated, especially when I'm sick.
Admittedly, I'm more of a Canada Dry person myself, but when you're sick,
get out. No. See, that's the only real wrong opinion. Canada Dry is garbage. Aren't we supposed to be talking about the Bible? Come on, let's get back to verse 18.
Yeah. Instead of just ranting about our very pointed opinions on ginger ale, we should probably talk about our pointed opinions on cities that have wrongly been accused of being homosexual and therefore getting nuked.
Yes. Let's.
Fun fact, to paraphrase something that came up during our discussion on this in Untitled, we all tend to think that Sodom and Gomorrah is, the gays! And really, it's not that. So before we lead into this, I really want to put this on here for anybody who's watching, waiting for the point where we have to wrestle with the fact that this whole city was nuked because of gay people. It wasn't, and you're wrong. So isn't it more about assholes and less about what you do with assholes? Quote the prophet Ezekiel, "This is the sin of your sister Sodom. She had pride and excess of food, but did not help the poor and needy among her."
Let's go ahead and read this.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, we're getting to the point where God is saying, okay, yeah, these guys got to go. This is Genesis chapter 18, verses 16 on out to 33, which is the end of the chapter. Its heading, which again, I will stress the headings are later editions for the English and are not present in the Hebrew text. The heading is Judgment Pronounced on Sodom. Boom, boom, boom. Shall we begin?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I will do the reading again so that you can rest thy voice. Let us begin.
Yeah.
Genesis chapter 18, verse 16. Then the men set out from there and they looked towards Sodom. The men, by the way, being the quote unquote angels from the previous episode, which if you haven't watched that yet, go back and watch that.
Yeah.
So the men set out from there and they looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to set them on their way. The Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do, seeing that Abraham shall become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? No. For I have chosen him that he may charge his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring about for Abraham what he has promised him." Then the Lord said, "How great is the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah, and how very grave is their sin. I must go down and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me, and if not, I will know." So the men turned from there and went towards Sodom, while Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham came near and said, "Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then sweep away the place and not forgive it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just? And the Lord said, if I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will forgive the whole place for their sin. Abraham answered, let me take it upon myself to speak to my Lord, I who am but dust and ashes. Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. Again, he spoke to him, suppose 40 are found there. He answered, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, oh, do not let my Lord be angry if I speak. Suppose 30 are found there. He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. He said, let me take it upon myself to speak to my Lord. Suppose 20 are found there. He answered, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, oh, do not let my Lord be angry if I speak just once more. Suppose 10 are found there. He answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. And the Lord went his way when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. You may have noticed me editorializing in my tone a little bit because I really, really do feel the whole parent-child relationship present in this verse.
Yeah, I think it's sort of intentionally there. It almost like, okay, I know where you're going with this. Just, I'm God. I know where you're going with this. Just can we arrive at the station, please?
Yeah, there's
bring this train into the station.
And I think we see in Abraham's answers the formation of what in Japanese would be keigo, honorific language. It's getting progressively more honorific as he goes on, which a lot of people are just like, well, he's speaking to God. Of course, he's going to be using honorific language, but he doesn't start there. So I kind of read this as he's talking with God and God's getting progressively more irritated. So he's using more and more formal language as he goes along. That's how I've always read this. I mean, I could be wrong. A lot of this is just kind of context editorialization, but that kind of makes sense to me. So yeah, lots going on here. And before we dig into this, I really want to point out, this is the whole point in which God is really kind of highlighting what God's going to be doing with the city. I'm looking for righteousness, and if I don't find it, nuclear weapons have been authorized.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Abraham is arguing to set the bar for righteousness lower. Yeah,
keep in mind that this is a guy who, and I can't stress this enough, continually uses sexual assault as a problem-solving methodology. So as he's talking to God about the bar for righteousness, it makes sense for Abraham to be going lower, maybe a little lower, maybe. But I really want to raise the point, and I mentioned this in our Wednesday evening / Thursday morning Bible study for me today when we're recording this, when we're talking about Genesis 19. What is not mentioned in this passage anywhere? Do you know?
The specific sins of Sodom?
Just unrighteousness in a general sense is mentioned. The outcry against them is great. So people are pissed at Sodom. People are complaining to God because Sodom and Gomorrah are so terrible. Now, I don't know if you've met many gay people, dear reader, or /listener /viewer. I have met quite a number of them, and I consider many of them to be good friends.
By the way, spoiler, if you don't think you've met many gay people, you just can't clock. You have definitely met many gay people. That just
means that the many gay people around you aren't particularly comfortable letting you know. So, of all the gay people I've known over the years, I have yet to meet I stand corrected. I've met exactly one who I would qualify as being so annoying or problematic that I would complain to God about them. Exactly one. And I've met quite a great number of them in my role as pastor and in my role as just generally trying not to be an asshole out in the world. I've met many gay people. They're all generally a fairly cheerful folk.
It's dangerous to generalize in any direction. But
true. But my point is saying that, as a collected group, the gays are no more or less righteous than any other subdivision of humanity. Ergo,
that's probably fair.
Yeah. Ergo, there is no reason to believe, statistically, logically, or otherwise, that the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah had anything to do with gay people.
Because I don't think that's where people are picking it up. They're picking it up from someone else.
That comes later. Generally, people who
they're
are
wrong, but
of course they're wrong. Generally, people who are using Sodom and Gomorrah as condemnation against quote unquote the gays are basing it off of something that happens in chapter 19, which we'll talk about later. And then they're backdating it to this to talk to where we get how very grave they're saying, oh, that sin must be the gays. So what I'm doing here is I'm highlighting that. Let's take chapter 19 out of it for a minute and just look at this here. Or, you know what, let's even include chapter 19. If it is the gays, if we're going to entertain this as a possibility, statistically and logically, it still doesn't make any damn sense. So even if you go into it with the assumption that 19 says, the gays, which it doesn't, then it still doesn't work here either.
Something just occurred to me.
What?
Okay, so they're essentially in this, they're dividing the city and theoretically into two camps, the righteous and the wicked. So if your argument is that the wicked is shorthand for the gays, listen, us LGBTQIA plus folks, we do tend to congregate, not entire cities. If I can find 10 straights, I'll keep it. No, that's not any of this.
That is a Eugene Peterson-esque, the message quality read of this text that I had never considered. I mean, if I find it Sodom, but 50 straight folk in the city, I will forgive the wife for their sake. Like, no, that's clearly not what that. I never even thought about it in that ridiculous of a term. So thank you for that.
It just struck me. I'm like, oh, I have to put this into words. Someone will laugh.
Yeah.
Somewhere on this planet will laugh at this. And that's a little bit of joy in the world. So I got to say it.
Yeah. So, like, if you're assuming that Sodom and Gomorrah is all about the gays, then he nuked the entire city because he couldn't find even 10 straight folk. Which, I'm sorry, just statistically speaking, like, I don't know what Fox News is telling you. Us straight folk were not a minority, not by a long stretch of things. And never have been. So, yeah, no, nothing about this makes sense if you're reading the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah as being, the gays. Yeah. So that piece aside, anything else do we want to really plug in here? It's a fairly straightforward passage.
Yeah, it is honestly really straightforward. Like, we split this chapter because it's big, but 22 through 33 is a lot of repetition.
Yeah.
I mean, it's repetition with descending numerology, but like, yeah.
And I think narratively speaking, one of the things I find interesting is that we often think of this section of Genesis 18 as just being 22 out to the end, Abraham negotiating with God. And we miss the narrative through line of the three dudes from the last episode are the same dudes who meet with Abram and the Lord on the hill and then go down to Sodom and Gomorrah and hang out with Lot. Like, we don't often catch the narrative through line that these are the same guys who go to visit in Sodom and Gomorrah. And interestingly, there's a distinction difference here, because in the previous chunk of this chapter, the three of them are very clearly a manifestation of the Lord. Here, the three men move on and the Lord stays with Abraham. And when they get down to Sodom and Gomorrah, now they're messengers. So there's almost a transmutation happening here.
Are they avatars? Like,
Yeah, well, I guess this would qualify as firebending of a sort.
Not what I meant. If we're going by cinematic, I was thinking more like blue people rather than bald kid avatars.
Yeah.
But
there is.
I just mean in the actual sense of the word, like an avatar.
I've often heard it suggested that in the previous chunk, at least, that was God's first attempt at doing the whole incarnate thing, and couldn't quite hold it, kind of shifted to messengers and moved on. The mechanics of this are hard to pin down in the best of times. So there really isn't a good way to say exactly what in the name of actual God is happening here. I don't know. I imagine that when we start talking about angelic beings, so to speak. That, we talk about our own spiritual proximity to God, the Imago Dei and things like that. I would guess that there's not as much of a material separation between an angelic being and God's self. Like, this is why, like, in Catholic dogma, we get the idea of the Metatron, an angel who's literally the voice of God, stuff like that. I don't buy in for all of that kind of beta canon nonsense that the Catholics are all about, but there's something to be said for the general idea that it's embracing, in that divine beings are a little bit more, if not interchangeable, than spiritually more direct links. How's that work? I don't know, because the Bible doesn't tell us, and I haven't met one yet.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. And like a lot of this interesting stuff, most of it is just abject theorization, because it doesn't matter on the overall message of the story. It's fun to think about, but that's about where it ends, which is basically what I say to anyone who tries to give me a lecture on angelology. Like, that is irrelevant. Good job. But it's still fun to think about. Like, it is interesting. So yeah, that's about it. Like, that narrative piece, I think, is kind of interesting to look at. And there is a debate that's happening in 16 to 21 here too, where God's like, should Abraham get to see this?
Yeah, I should just show him.
Yeah,
I picked him, so he can handle it. That's really how it reads.
Well, it reads to me as more like, no, I picked him, and he should see what happens if the nation I raise him up into turns into like this. Like, this is going to be a powerful negative example to him. I think he can handle it, but more is the point, he needs to know what happens if you go the other direction. Which I'm going to repeat for those of you who are watching this from America. According to the prophet Ezekiel, this is the sin of your sister Sodom. She had pride in excess of food and did not help the poor and needy among her, which, aside from giving us a clear invective that we can call Republicans sodomites without fear of being linguistically incorrect, that piece aside, this should be like a direct look at America today, saying, guys, uh-oh. We kind of got a thing going on here. Maybe ought not to.
Well, and I would like to take just the fact that the overall message of the book is like, be righteous to one another. That's not the Bible. That's Bill and Ted. But same general idea. Yeah,
if you're not taking care, then you're not doing the God thing. It's that freaking simple. How hard is this to figure out?
Just love each other, share what you have, take care of one another.
How stupid do you have to be to take the passage that highlights this is what will happen to you if you don't take care of each other, and turn that into okay, so what you mean to say is we should kill the gays? Like, how stupid do you have to be to make that switch?
See, and there's part of me that's like, saying how stupid do you have to be isn't really going to win anybody over. But
no,
I can't help thinking there's not a whole lot of people watching this show who are like, fuck the gays or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I don't imagine.
And if they were, I don't know that we're going to change their minds.
Yeah, I don't imagine our analytics are going to show us that we have a high conservative fan base here. And if we do, I'm honestly glad you're watching, and I hope you're learning something, because this is actually really important work to deconstruct the text. And it's something that conservative followers of Christianity very rarely do. So if you are conservative and actually watching this, for the love of God, send me an email, come on the Discord server, do something so that we can talk to you more, because first, why are you here? How? All of these are questions I would like to ask. But
no, if we've got conservatives hate watching this, they're making fun of. Well, I mean, I'm a female on the internet who, with only passing attention to the consistency of my look, so rip away. But yeah, no, I don't hold out a lot of hope for that situation. But at the same time, and this is again tangenting a bit, but like, if we're ever going to get anywhere, we got to figure out a way to like bring everybody around to the same set of goals.
And but, not to put too fine a point on it, but just this past week, I did do in my own humble opinion, fairly directed sermon on this exact issue. which is also available on YouTube. So you're just gonna scroll down a little bit. It's also there. Check it out. But I think if we got nothing else to pry into, I think we should probably call it for today.
Yeah, we can call this.
Yeah. All right. So I think we pretty much covered all of our normal end of episode stuff anyway. There's a Discord server down below. There are links, and Courtney's going to tell us to do the thing again.
Like, share, and subscribe.
For the love of God, please do those things. They really help.
Tell us what you think in the comments. Good, bad, and I mean, indifferent would be a weird thing to leave a comment on. But
take it to a football and punt it into the ocean so someone on a desert island can get a YouTube link and not know what to do with it. Hey, whatever works. I'm all for creativity.
Take weird screenshots of it and link them up to QR codes that you slap on the side of buildings so people scan them and just get a picture of me going.
Get it to that time code so we can get that face. Perfect. And sent. But nice. If nothing else, I hope and pray that you'll get in touch and that you'll have a wonderful week, and we will see you in the next episode, in which we, and I say we in pretty big air quotes because surprise, surprise, we're pretty much just going to pass you to another video we've already done on the subject, are going to explore Genesis 19, the first chunk of it anyway, and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a fun thing. Come check it out. Have a good week. We'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.